It's time for the Burning River Sportscast. It's week, so we'll break it all down for you right now. Welcome into a very special post-game live bye-week edition of the Burning River Sportscast presented by the fine folks at Tappan Media. I'm Kenny Thunder. Joining me tonight, Red Hot Ronnie Jams and the Big Bone Man, the trio, the triumvirate that will be heading with True Fan Travel on their way to New Orleans this week. Gentlemen, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Doing well.
Excellent. Back to Red Hot. Where can our listeners find the dopest dope they ever heard on a podcast, the number one rated football podcast, and all the good pods, as well as the unofficial podcast of Cleveland Browns backers everywhere.
And the official podcast of some Cleveland Browns backers somewhere. You want to know where you can find our podcast? You can find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm talking Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Podcast Castro, Good Pods, where we are a number one football podcast, and so many more. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. The only place you can find our video podcast. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Our handle for all those socials at Burning River Sportscast. We are on X with the handle at Burning River Pod. While you're out, check out our merch, www.thetappanmedia.com/shop. All kinds of stuff in there. River gear, some Cincinnati is in Kentucky gear. There's some Chubb gear. There's some Brook Park Browns gear. There's all kinds of stuff. So check it out.
Brook Park Browns.
Yeah. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to some of our sponsors. Towpat Distillery. Towpat Distillery, an award-winning craft distillery located in Akron, Ohio. Towpat Distillery focuses on high-quality spirits, carefully made in small batches. Towpat Distillery, handcrafted, award-winning, small batch, local and family-owned. And True Fan Travel. They make away games, home games with all-inclusive travel packages. They had a trip to Las Vegas and a trip to Washington, D.C. earlier this year that were awesome. And now this week, that's right, this coming week, we will be traveling with them as the Dog Pound takes over the Superdome in New Orleans. This event includes optional round-trip private charter flight, just a few seats left on that, so make sure you get your tickets if you can. 3-night stay at Renaissance New Orleans Père Marquette French Quarter. Welcome party, which is an all-inclusive cruise down the Mississippi River with the Dog Pound. Q&A with Kevin Mack. Pep rally the night before, all-inclusive tailgate the day of, tickets to the game at the Superdome, and on-site trip coordinators to handle any issues or questions that may arise. Guys, this week is finally here. I'm pretty excited about this.
New Orleans, baby.
I'm ready to go.
What's the number one thing you guys are both looking forward to?
Beignets.
Beignets. Hell yes. Can we try at least like 7 different beignets?
I'm going to cover Bone with powdered sugar and make him the Bonier.
The Bonier. I love it. Bone, what are you excited about? Becoming the Bonier?
That's new for me, but po' boys, I don't know, crawfish. Maybe I'll slurp a crawfish out of its shell. I'm into that. Maybe an oyster, maybe a gator sandwich, alligator sausage.
Raw dog and a crawfish.
Oh yeah. I'm excited to check out the town. I think it's like the second oldest, one of like the second oldest like little town areas in the country or something. I don't know. I forget the history.
Bone's been studying.
Very old.
Bone's been studying. He's like, I need to know everything about New Orleans before we go.
He's a New Orleans historian.
He's an actual historian.
He's a history guy.
Yeah,
he is an actual history guy. It's true.
The French owned it. The Spanish owned it. The Native Americans owned it. We own it now. So, I mean, there's all types of stuff. All types of culture.
He knows everything. He's just taking you through a quick history of New Orleans. But I was excited for
True fans should have contracted Bone to give tours of the city.
Give tours. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I was really excited for the food. Beyond the beignets, but now all I can think about is beignets. So
don't go to sleep, Bone.
With powdered sugar.
Man, if he's gonna wake up and he's gonna be like, wait a second.
Why am I so sticky?
This show is getting wild already. Listen, on today's show, this is what you can look forward to. We got a recap of the Browns bye week, which was pretty uneventful, but we'll recap it anyways. Recap of the season to this point, how we're feeling about the Browns right now, where we think this team is heading after the bye and beyond. And I'm sure there's going to be more. So let's jump right into it and get things started by reminding everyone to call the what?
Burning River Hot Take Hotline.
He didn't even say it right. The Burning River Sportscast Hot Take Hotline. It's a bad job out of you, Bone. Are you even on this show?
I usually don't say that, so I probably should have kept my mouth shut.
It's on the screen.
I'm on my phone. I don't see this stuff. I don't see everything you guys see.
Oh, God. But yeah, let's see if you guys have hot takes. Go ahead and call the hot take hotline. It's 330-227-8080. Call and leave those hot takes on the hot take hotline. We will put them on air and we will talk about them. It'll be a lot of fun. So give us a call. We want to hear your hot takes.
We want your hot takes.
We want hot takes. But with that, let's get into the bye week recap. So only one thing really happened, guys. Zadarius Smith and a 7th rounder were traded to Detroit for a 5th rounder and a 6th rounder. So, I know we talked about it on last week's live show, and it had already kind of been announced during the game, but then it happened. It was finalized on Monday. So, thoughts here?
There was a whole lot of talk, a whole lot of rumors, and very little payoff. From the fan side of me, I don't want any of these guys to leave, right? Like, you get to know your team and you like your dudes and you want to keep them. The reality is that this team is in a tough spot right now, and they're just simply not going to be able to run this thing back again next year without changing quite a few things. So this was the first shoe to fall. So happy trails to Darius. I know he wasn't necessarily thrilled. I know he tweeted directly after the news broke, SMH, which was later then deleted. I'm sure he'll be happy once he gets to Detroit and gets the chance to play and gets the chance to play for a winning football team. But I think he had kind of made Cleveland home and was looking forward to getting through the season with the guys. I'm surprised, honestly, that more moves weren't made because, like I said, they're gonna. This was again the first shoe to drop, so we have a whole off season for things to go wild. And I guess the good news is from my personal, from the fan side is, I'm hoping we get to a point where it's not Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski in charge of making personnel decisions going forward. I'd rather have all these guys sitting around stocked away as potential draft capital for whoever the next administration is to come in and run this organization.
Yeah, and with the whole Zadarius thing, it just like you said, it is kind of the whole bye week was just uneventful because we all knew this was happening before it happened. And we didn't really get anything for him, but you can't because he's only on a 1-year contract or whatever. It's not like that they had a lot of leverage there or anything like that. But I saw a lot of
that's kind of what we started. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's kind of what we said during the last show, right? Is you're not going to rebuild this franchise by trading away guys like your Juan Thornhills, your Newsoms of the world. In order to really get significant capital back, you're going to be looking at guys like Njoku, guys like Miles, guys like Denzel, guys like Nick Chubb, maybe even some of your interior linemen, guys like Wyatt Teller. I know, Batonio, I'm still would still fetch a decent sum for somebody looking to solidify their line. That was a good football team that needed a 1-year rental out of an all-pro.
Wyatt Teller.
You're just not going to get draft capital out of. Yeah, Wyatt Teller's another guy that I think you could get capital for. So, but it's going to be those big name guys that when you're thinking about rebuilding the franchise, they're going to have to go.
Yeah, and where I was going with that was just that Myles Garrett was one that we threw out last week that said, none of us want him to go. That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying at all. But if we get to the off season and the goal going forward is going to be a complete rebuild, he's somebody that probably should have been unloaded at the trade deadline so you could maximize return for him. He's going to be worth more The only way that he's worth more at the end of the year than he is right now is if he wins another Defensive Player of the Year, which the Browns are so bad that's probably not happening. So,
I mean, what's interesting is it sounded like there was plenty of activity. I mean, it wasn't like nobody was calling on these guys. They didn't make the moves for whatever reason. So, and
yeah.
maybe that is Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski thinking, they need to win a few games here to protect their jobs if they're going to be here next year. So it doesn't make sense.
Which is also fair
right now.
Yeah, which is also fair because if they don't win a few more games, they definitely will be gone. But I just don't understand. Like you mentioned, Njoku was another one. Him and Myles Garrett both. Like again, I don't want either of them traded. I'd rather they just be here and the Browns be good, and we don't have to trade them. But the bottom line is both of those guys are 28. They're coming up on that magic number in the NFL of 30, to where it's kind of a coin flip after that if they're going to stay at a dominant level or if it's all going to go downhill. And that neither of them would have been more valuable than they are right now. Like this is the most value we would have got for them. So if that's the way it's trending as a full rebuild, we should have got the draft capital while we could.
And again, I always just go back to, look, I know fans don't want their favorite players traded, but the thing is like these guys have been stalwarts on your roster for several years now, and clearly they're not the unimpeachable difference between you and being an AFC Championship football team. So
no,
yeah,
they're here and we're losing, so
dig elsewhere for that, right?
Yeah. Bone, your thoughts on any of these guys and kind of just the direction of the team and what should have been or what could have been done at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I guess just by all the talk, I kind of expected more, but it seems like they're running it back and just going to try to put some wins together in the second half of the season. I don't think they're going to try to bomb the season, and get the number one pick or anything. I expect Jameson to keep playing hopefully well, and I think the team is going to keep trying to win games. I don't see the team giving up or the defense laying an egg. Maybe it kind of sent a message that we want you guys here and we're hoping to win some football games. So, but like Kenny said, I don't know how many calls were taken or what was said to the players, or I don't know. So it seems like they're looking to win some games in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I will say this. Go ahead, Kenny.
To Bone's point there around maybe not wanting to tank the rest of the season, they still got, I think Podesta's probably one of those guys, the analytics guy in the building is probably one of those guys that's not going to be with this organization next year, just given the
he better not
of the whole organization. But I do wonder if there are analytics at play in terms of draft position, because it's almost like you're in a tougher position as having the first overall pick in the draft versus being in, let's just call it 7 or the top 10. Like you almost have more freedom if you're in the top 10 because you can go, if the guy we want is there, we'll take him, or we can trade back and we'll get value, or we could trade up if the guy we really want is there and we need to make a move. Versus if you're that first overall pick, you're really pigeonholed into having to take best player on the board. So I just wonder, like, again, from an analytics standpoint, if they're almost looking at that thinking like, yeah, we want to be in the mix, we want to be early on in the draft process, but it really doesn't. I mean, if you get teams that had the very first overall pick, like how many times has it transformed their franchise the following year? Like not
very many.
Anecdotally, I just can't think of many off the top of my head that went from like first to worst to first because
and then
first overall pick in the draft.
It's not just having a good season that next year; it's sustained success, because you could point to players like RG3 that changed an organization overnight, but then a few years later they're back where they were. So,
right.
Yeah, it's frustrating because just like I said, I think that the Browns could have used that capital. They're going nowhere fast. And I know, Bone, you said it looks like they're just going to try and win some games the rest of the season, then run it back next year. Well, guess what? We're already the oldest team in the NFL. But I guess that whole thing does kind of fit with the Browns right now. Is where the definition of insanity is just doing the same things over and over again and hoping for different results. And I mean, that's what the Browns have done all season long. So
we're the definition of blow.
Yeah,
That's what we're the definition of.
I mean, that's factual information.
The other thing I think we haven't done justice with on our show all year long, and just by talk, we haven't talked about it enough, is the fact that not only is this an older roster, this is the most expensive offense in the NFL. Period. I mean, by dollars and cents,
and it's the worst offense in the NFL. Period.
And the least effective. Yeah, I mean, geez, you talk about just an absolute waste of money.
Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, as far as the bye week goes, besides the Zadarius Smith trade, like the Browns, the bye week was very uneventful. So, just nothing there. But
side note, I don't know if any of you guys have the game on right now, but the Houston Texans red helmet on fire.
Oh, those ones are nice. I like those. Those are pretty slick.
Get up.
Red chrome. Yeah.
I don't have the game on, but you guys said that the white helmets were interesting too for Jacksonville.
Yeah. It was just an interesting look for them.
Yeah. But next up here, we're just going to get into a little bit of a season recap. I mean, we talked a little bit about it. We're going to kind of continue those discussions. First and foremost, just to get it out of the way, and we'll keep it as brief as possible. But I want to talk about Deshaun Watson and just more or less, I want to recap what a disappointment he's been overall, because for the first time since he's been on our team, Andrew Berry came out and showed no confidence in him in a press conference and basically said, we'll see what happens when he gets healthy. But there's no guarantees he's going to play for us again. So, I mean,
thank God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, but at this point, now that it's done and we're probably going to get, he's probably not playing for the Browns again. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on the whole experiment? And I'm talking, I know it was the worst, probably hindsight being 2020, the worst trade in NFL history, or damn near close, if not. And what I want to know is, like, do you still fault them for taking the chance if they thought that was going to get them over the hump? Either one.
I mean, personally, yes, I still fault them for that, because you had the makings of a playoff roster year in and year out. Remember after the divisional playoff game with the Chiefs, we kind of thought maybe the Chiefs would become our new rival. We would see them in the playoffs over and over and over again. It would just be a battle of who can get past each other each year. And Baker Mayfield is in a position now where he's leading the NFL in touchdown passes. So you can't tell me that that like it wasn't that there was a lack of talent. There was a lack of ability to coach, ability to get along, which I don't care in professional sports. Like, that's your job, is to figure that shit out. If you have the talent there, I mean, Jesus, we'll move heaven and earth for talent, as we've saw the John Watson trade. They didn't care about anything else except for the fact that we thought he was a talented guy. Well, you had a talented guy here on your roster, and you guys couldn't figure out a way to make it work. So, I absolutely hold them accountable for that. I think that's the first thing that you look back on and realize, like, that was your first misstep here, guys. Like, you really screwed up by not figuring out a way to make that work. And since then, it's just been a comedy of continued errors and continued bad contracts and guys that haven't performed up to what you'd hope them to be. So, I mean, this whole thing is there's a reason that they're 2-7 or whatever, it's just the culmination of a bunch of bad decision making. And it's not only just players, right? It's coaching staff. It's letting Bill Callahan walk. It's letting AVP go. It's bringing in Ken Dorsey. It's just you are the result of a decision you've ever made, period.
Yeah. Bone, thoughts on that?
We were kind of told that the Browns did their due diligence, right, on everything.
Yeah.
With Deshaun, and it's just like, how do you not get into like his mental mindset and just it almost seems like his lack of love for football. He was just so god awful in every aspect of his
body
game.
language,
Body
everything.
language, everything. Never became part of the city. Just never embraced any of it, which I don't think he could because people were so standoffish with him. It was like, I hope he's good. It's like, I hope the product on the football field's okay, because outside of it, there's nothing to talk about. And well, there was, because there was more allegations that apparently the Browns didn't know about. So it just continued. And then
there's that due diligence again.
What was the suspension? I knew they thought he was going to get suspended, but what was it? Was it 8 games, 11 games, or I forget what it was? But
his initial suspension was what was it? 10?
I think it was 11 games. I thought
11.
It's over half
11 because he came back week 12 against Houston. So,
and I don't know his injury history in Houston. I'm not sure if he ever even got injured in Houston, but it's been a shit show since he's been here. So his shoulder's fallen off. He can't throw the ball. He can't see the field. He can't do anything. So it's like, you want to say at one point in time, he was a top 5 quarterback in Houston, right? But that was 3-4 years ago at this point now. And it's like, you would hope our football masterminds who, graduated from all these top universities could do their due diligence and maybe avoid such a trade. But it's kind of where we're at. So,
yeah. And so, guys,
what's funny too about just they knew that the suspension was coming, and it's like the whole reason that they made the move was because you were trying to convince everybody this team was built to win now. The team is built to win now, but just not this season. Maybe next season.
Right?
That's not winning now. That's winning now.
That's the opposite. Yeah. No, so my thoughts on this, guys, are kind of two-pronged here. So it's first of all, like, I don't, if the organization at that point, if we rewind and we're at the exact same point in time, right? Right before the Deshaun Watson stuff goes down. If your front office, if you're telling me the only thing we're missing is a quarterback, then as far as the actual contract and everything else, like, I don't fault anybody for that. And going to get the guy you think is going to get you there. Where I do fault them is everything else that you just mentioned, Bone, and the fact that they said they did their due diligence. But if you just look at surface level, like not even digging too far, he held the ball longer than anybody in Houston. And we run a West Coast offense. Like, it's all about timing. You can't hold the ball. You got to get rid of it. There's all these allegations that have come out, not allegations, I should say, but information that's come out that said even before he, was up for his free agency and everything else, or his trade, I should say, because technically we traded for him. But even before that was all kind of going on, people knew around the NFL that Bill O'Brien kind of had a crutch for him and designed an offense to where it was super simple. There was like hardly any reads. He cut the field in half. He basically dumbed it down to almost a high school level to say, here you go, Deshaun Watson, you're pretty athletic. Now go do something good. And so it's like these things, that's where the fault is it has nothing to do with going, like, the city, I think in general would be very happy with them if they went all in. And even if the guy didn't pan out, but he was a upstanding member of society, and he at least, if all indications were that he was good on the football field. And I know people will say he was a top 5 quarterback, he threw for this many yards, but they also were terrible. He was throwing it literally the entire game, every game. I mean, he does that now and he still sucks, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, I think that as much as they wanted to preach due diligence, there really was hardly any done here. And I was glad you went there, Bone, because those are kind of my thoughts on the whole thing is if you're going to tell me you're going all in on a guy, and you have done your homework, then okay, whatever, let's do it. If you think that's what's going to get us over the hump, because guess what? If he would have won a Super Bowl, everybody be pumped. If he would have just played decent, we've been in the playoffs every year, everybody be pumped. But here we are, and he's ass. And we don't make the playoffs. We're one of the worst teams in the NFL, and we're looking at a complete rebuild starting next year with no draft capital and no money. So
feels
here's the other thing, guys, is we act like at times like there's some secret sauce, or that this is something that's you got to be a genius to figure out, right? The Browns and all these Ivy Leaguers know. my due diligence on Deshaun could have been done the day he said, I don't want to play for you.
Right,
and it wasn't until we guaranteed the money on the contract. That's not a guy that was looking at roster and thinking, who gives me the best chance to win? That's not a guy that was looking around going, where can I be successful? That was a guy that clearly was looking at nothing else but a paycheck. Due diligence done.
Yeah.
Done.
And even besides
smarter than that.
Yeah, and to build off of that, I mean, he came into the building and the first press conference he had, he sat there and he told everybody it had nothing to do with the money. I love the Browns. Okay, well, why'd you say no the first time around and you were getting ready to sign on the dotted line with Atlanta before we came back and guaranteed your contract, and you ran from Atlanta where you were actually physically at the time and said, I'm going to go sign with the Browns now.
And the other thing too, I just think that, and this is probably the unfortunate part, is I think like I always think about this like personally, or like we all reached a point where you were a good youth football player or youth baseball player, or you were good in middle school or good high school athlete, even a good college athlete. At some point, for us that aren't a part of the 0.0001% of elite athletes in the world that get to play these games for a living, the game and the talent of those around you passes you by. And I think that is maybe even more so what we're looking at with Deshaun Watson. At some point, like, this is as fast as I'm ever going to be, and I'm never going to be as fast as the guys that play in college or the NFL. Like, my football career is over. I think Deshaun reached a point where physically, and it's a weird because you think like, well, he's already there, but that doesn't mean, like, guys age out at different times, right? I mean, there's guys that have really long careers. There's guys that have shorter careers. The average career in the NFL is like 3.2 years or whatever it is. Like, a lot of these guys come in with high hopes and aspirations, and whether it's injuries, whether it's just the rigor on your body, and or it's the changing of coaches and systems and not just being able to keep up with all the things. It could be a multitude of factors, but at some point, I think the game passed him by. So it doesn't matter who was brought in to coach him or what. I think physically, he was at a point where he couldn't do what he used to be able to do. Mentally, he couldn't do what he used to be able to do. And that's the real tragedy in all of this, is that you wasted draft capital, you wasted money, you wasted time, you wasted the careers of all these talented guys around you for a guy that just didn't have it anymore. I mean, I think Bone said it's been 3 or 4 years. I think, like, I'm trying to count back in my head, like, he's been with the Browns for 3 years. He sat out a year in Houston. It's been 5 years since he was a good quarterback. That's a long time.
Yeah. And the Andrew Berry in the front office here in Cleveland have too big of an ego to say we messed up and just let this team be good. So,
well, and I think part of that goes back again to the due diligence too, right? Like, how much physical due diligence was put into that? I can guess almost none. I think they watched some film together and they said, yeah, we can build a system for you here in Cleveland. I don't think they made him run the 40. I don't think they made him throw the ball from his knees. I don't think they made him throw balls through hoops and run timing drills or routes with receivers. There was nobody down there measuring those things, making sure he was still as sharp physically as he ever was. It was all about the money and the contract and scheme, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess, I mean, with that, what I hope to do, guys, and the reason I started with this topic is because with Andrew Berry more or less saying he'd, read between the lines in that press conference, and Deshaun Watson probably will never play another snap for the Cleveland Browns again. At least not starting quarterback snaps, unless there's a catastrophe. And so with that, I kind of want to just use this segment and let both you guys talk and get out what you had to say, because I just want to kind of close the book on Deshaun Watson and more or less talk about the Browns and everything else. I mean, obviously he'll still come up with contracts and stuff because he hampers everything rebuilding going forward. But yeah, just one last hurrah for this whole conversation on what this whole, what the Browns fans have been through, what we've all seen, whether or not anything was actually done to prepare the Browns for this, all those types of things. And I think I'm right there with you guys. I don't think any due diligence was done. I think they've put all of the fans through the ringer, and the Browns have suffered as an organization for this trade. So, but yeah. But yeah, with that, just let's talk about the record real quick. They're 2-7, not good. I think they still technically have a chance to make the playoffs, but the latest thing I saw puts them at 0.05%.
They're in the hunt.
Yeah, that's not 5%, like 0.05. That's not 5%. That's 0.05%.
Wow.
So less than 1%.
So
half of 1%.
Even if you go 8-0, you still need like 10 to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, mathematically, right? The math still works. If you made it to 10-7, you probably have an outside shot. The problem is, how are you getting to 10-7?
You're not.
How are you winning 8 games in a row?
Yeah, that's not happening. So I mean, just a huge disappointment, obviously, of a season. We talked about it earlier in the year. This is a team that came in. Shannon Sharp picked them to go to the Super Bowl. A lot of other analysts across sports talks, had them probably somewhere like middle of the pack, like 10 and like that 10-7 range that you were just talking about, Kenny, like 9-8, somewhere around there. And potentially, depending on who you talk to, some had them winning the division, make them playoffs. Some of them had them getting wild cards. Some of them had them just on the outside looking in, but nobody had them at 2-7 at the bye and basically the season being over. So complete disappointment, complete waste of talent. And just, guys, it's been hard to watch.
I was glad I didn't have to watch them today.
Yeah.
This is the best part about bye week.
I needed a little bit of a break to kind of regroup and get my mind right for going to New Orleans this week to watch them.
It is weird, isn't it? You went from like the beginning of the season, we had those same hopes as everybody, and now going into the second half of the season, you needed the bye week to mentally prepare for the suck that's coming.
Right.
And that's
look, I mean, it's not gonna get any better from here on out. I think, I think that they stand a better chance of winning some games here through the rest of the season with Jameis at quarterback. Even if they end up going the DTR route at some point here, I still think he gives you a better chance to win than Deshaun ever did. So they'll win a couple games down the stretch. It's just a matter of like, do they win 2 or are they going to win 3 or 4 and like try and make this a respectable effort on the season? Because I really think if this team flames out the rest of the way and wins one game down the stretch here and they finish 3-14 or whatever, 4-13, there's no way you can bring these guys back.
It's going to be a fire sale.
Not just the players. I mean, the entire coaching staff. I mean, the entire admin has to go. I mean, to tell me you made this move, we did all these things to win now, and you're 4-13, like that doesn't jive.
Yeah, the only way a bunch of these players and some of the coaches come back is they have to. I would say we're 2-7 now. You got 8 games left. You have to win probably at least 4, if not 5 of them, in order for a significant portion of this roster and this coaching staff to come back.
Well, yeah, I mean, can you go the Mangini route and you win the last like 4 weeks of the season? You go into the offseason feeling like you have some momentum because you won 4 games in a row, or you kind of had some things finally figured out. But I just think the chances of that are very little. It'll be real interesting to see how they navigate Nick Chubb and his return on the season, because I just think if he's a part of the future plan, like I don't know that there's a whole lot of reason to have him out there a whole lot as much as I want to see him as a fan. I think there's some work that needs to be done. I think he needs some work just to like get back in the swing of playing football on that. But I think that role starts to become very limited throughout the rest of the year. Instead of getting 15 to 20 carries, this is a guy that's now going to get 6 to 8 during the week, and you rely on some of these younger guys to really carry the load because you're just not going anywhere, and you would rather not risk putting more miles on this guy than need be if he's going to be here next year. Another contract conversation, I think, with Nick Chubb too, right? I mean, that's going to be an off-season discussion, so we'll see altogether or whether or not he's even a part of their plan.
Yep. No, and I mean, Nick Chubb was on here just as topics to talk about for the same reason. So you kind of just you said everything that I wanted to go over as usage the rest of the year and what we're going to do in the off season. So we could talk a little bit more about him in just a minute. For this season so far, I just want to point out that everybody likes to talk about Andrew Berry and how he makes great moves on paper and this, that, and the other thing. He's a terrible drafter. Absolutely god awful. Kind of the two, not that we've had a lot of draft picks, because of his decision to get Deshaun Watson. Sorry, went back there already, but bookend. But the top, some of the top picks in the draft this past year are Mike Hall and Zach Zinter, and I know Zach Zinter hasn't got a ton of playing time yet. Mike Hall, though, I mean, domestic issues early on, suspended for the first 4 or 6 games, whatever it was, came back, made a few plays here and there, but overall hasn't really, lit it up or done anything really. So just add 2 more to the list, the growing list of players that haven't done anything. And then, I mean, the only one
is, you kind of said it like it feels like every time there's a move made, regardless of what it is, whether it's a contract restructure or a new player coming in, or even somebody leaving, addition through subtraction, it's like we all go, oh yeah, trust in Andrew Berry. The only thing Andrew Berry has done well is navigate the cap problem he created with Deshaun Watson. Because we're looking at a lot of cases, you'd be like, well, you really can't make any moves because you're so hampered by the cap. Somehow, some way, he's figured out a way to move money around and continue making moves. That's all that he's done well, though, is navigate the cap, and the cap wouldn't be a problem if it weren't for his decisions previously. So, I mean, it's like crapping on the floor and clean it up yourself. Like, hey, clean up the crap. Well, you crapped on the floor, man.
Yeah, you don't get points for cleaning up your own mess.
No, it's your own problem.
Bone, I saw the gears turning.
I would say, yeah, his drafting has been god awful. I will say maybe you could give him credit for bringing in a few free agents, Zadarius Smith, Clowney.
Zadarius Smith is gone now, though. So
there's been a couple players I feel like he's brought in that have contributed to success in the past, but I don't know. As far as draft capital, JOK.
Yeah, basically his only claims to fame in the draft so far are JOK and Delpit, and the only ones that are maybes at this point are DeJuan Jones and Cedric Tillman. It's still too early to tell for both of them, I think. DeJuan Jones had a great rookie year. This year he came in the first part of the season. He was complete ass until they moved him to left tackle, and he's done a lot better on that side. And then Cedric Tillman finally has played well because Amari Cooper's not here anymore. But if you have better receivers, because you look at our receiver room right now, it's not great. So if you have better receivers, is Cedric Tillman playing the way he's playing now? I don't know. That's debatable. But maybe he is, and maybe he is going to be good. But that's one, like I said, too early to tell for him and DeJuan Jones both, I think. So at this point, you've got 2. You've got Grant Delpit, and you've got JOK.
Sure.
It's not good. So yeah, and then just you talked about bringing.
Was Delpit a Berry pick?
I believe so. I believe that was one of his first ones.
He was hurt the first 2 years he was on our team.
I thought he was one of the first ones. I guess I could be mistaken. Bone, where's our board man? Bone.
I'm on my
He's on his phone.
I have nothing.
He can't look it up. We need a statistician immediately. A guy that just goes through and.
I feel like he was a Berry pick.
Because that was 2020. So I'm trying to think that would either been right at the end of John Dorsey.
I think it was Berry pick. I think it was Berry's one of his. Doesn't matter. I think it does matter. It was one of his first picks. I'm almost positive it was the first draft that he did. He got Delpit in, and we thought Delpit was going to be a bust too because he was hurt his first couple years in the league. So, and then he finally came on. But no, I mean, Bone, you mentioned some of the other. You mentioned that he's been okay free agency wise, and he's picked up a couple decent depth players that have helped us along the way. But overall, I mean, look at the team this year. What are all those free agents doing for us? You got Juan Thornhill out there just busting coverages left and right. You've got all these depth pieces at offensive line and defensive line. Well, you know, we're not doing much either of those places. So what are they actually doing for us? Kenny looks so distracted.
Sorry, now I'm just down the rabbit hole going through every draft.
Stop it. We got a show to do, man. So. You can't. We got a show to do. Stop it.
Any successful player we've had has come from Dorsey.
Yeah, I mean, sustained successful. Yes,
some real winners in here. Jordan Elliott, Jacob Phillips, Harrison Bryant. Yeah, that's good.
That's what I'm saying. Like honestly, his free agency has been okay at best if you really look at it. Like it's not been great. To Kenny's point,
Tommy Togiai.
Yeah, what Andrew Berry is best at is moving numbers, is moving decimal points. That is what he's good at.
He's a good public speaker.
I think he's average at best. He just kind of repeats the same four things over and over again. Him and Kevin Stefanski both. It's like you could. I'm pretty sure Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, you could predict their press conference before they have it. It's the same things over and over again.
Oh yeah, Stefanski's has been the same every week of the season.
That's on me. I got to do a better job. I got to call better plays. I got to put our guys in a better position to win.
Like, at what point does that like? At what point are we like? Yeah, Kevin, you should call better. You should do better.
I think going forward, every time I don't hit my sales goal at my day job, I'm just going to go in and be like, that's on me. I got to do better. I got to put my customers in a better position to win. Please, and just see how it goes over. I just want to see what my leaders in my company think of me just saying, yep, that's all me. I'm a terrible salesperson.
I just got to do a better job during the week prepping for these sales calls. You know,
if I would do better, we would be better.
We would have more sales,
but we don't. Yeah, I don't know. So, guys, what can we expect the rest of the season and beyond? Let's start with Jameis Winston here. You think he actually is going to start the rest of the season, or do you think they're going to switch to DTR at some point?
I think he starts the rest of the season, and mostly because I think they try to win as many games through down the stretch as possible. I think
just to keep their jobs.
Once you go to DTR, you kind of signal the white flag entirely, and everybody knows kind of what this is. You still have a lot of veteran guys on this team, guys that are playing for contracts, guys that are playing maybe to play somewhere else next year, playing for pride, whatever it is. You don't want to go that far yet. Now, if you get to the point where you continue to lose games and you get into December and you got 3 games left and you go, we're not going to win any of these 3 games, you might as well see what we have in DTR. Then let's get some more tape on this guy. Great. But I just think that they're in a position where they have screwed this thing up so badly. They have to try and redeem themselves by winning a few games down the stretch so they can at least say, we were really close to being competitive. It was just, we were hampered by Deshaun. Turns out Deshaun, that was a big goof, and we're going to have to fix that in the offseason. And we still think if we get the quarterback right, then this team has a chance to do some special things. I mean, I think that's the only hope they have of sticking around next year. So I can't imagine a scenario really in which DTR gets to play unless just, again, all hope is entirely lost on the season and they just can't win another game the rest of the way.
Yeah. Bone thoughts?
I agree with Kenny. I think Jameis will continue to play unless he gets hurt. And kind of going into kind of coaching for your job, I feel like we haven't heard anything like nationally or even like local media even talking about that.
He was number 5 on the hot seat on ESPN, I believe.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think he finally made the graphic of the top 5 coaches on the hot seat right before the bye.
Maybe even more so like local media, like nobody's calling for Stefanski's job.
And
not yet.
I will say this, Bone, the top 5, that was actually the week before, like going into the week when Deshaun got hurt. Since then, it's kind of disappeared. It's almost like, well, Deshaun got hurt, so you got to pass now, which I don't understand because we're a better team now. But
my point is, we have Mike Vrabel on this like coaching staff organization. I feel like Stefanski's has to be looking over his shoulder, unless they're just buddies or something. But Mike Vrabel is beloved in Ohio. So yeah. I just feel like that's just somebody's that's been there and nobody really talks about him. But I feel like he's somebody who could step in right away and make an impact on this team. So I think Stefanski knows that. And not to mention Jim Schwartz, I feel like is still beloved by his defensive players, and the city loves Jim Schwartz at this point still as well. So I feel like that's got to be some pressure just right there as a head coach.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so for the Jameis Winston thing, go ahead, Kenny.
I was going to say, that's actually a really good point. I think if you're in a position where you don't want to make wholesale changes, you're not ready to part with Miles, you're not ready to part with Zell, you're not ready to part with Chubb, all these guys, and just rebuild this team, that is maybe the one way they could get away with it, saying, hey, look, we're going to make changes at the top of the house, and Vrabel's going to come in and we're going to run this back with a lot of the same guys and make a few small changes here and there, but we're not that far off. Outside of just blowing up. Actually, a really good point.
Yeah. And I agree with that with Vrabel. I think you're right. Everybody in Ohio loves him. And I think everybody loves Jim Schwartz still too, because as bad as this team has been, I think you can at least see the fight in the defense for the most part. Occasionally the DBs make us look silly, but overall, I think you can still see the fight in the defense. So I would agree with you there. But as far as the Jameis thing goes, Kenny?
I was going to say too, some of the biggest pops and cheers at Browns camp this year were when Vrabel came out on the field.
Yeah, you were there, so you know.
that was the one thing fans were, there's Mike Vrabel. Yeah.
Yep. And so, yeah, I mean, it is a good point. And I think we can all agree here pretty quickly. I would not mind him with the title HC in front of his name for the Cleveland Browns.
I'm in.
With that being said, the whole Jameis thing, I think he starts the rest of the year too. And I just wanted to throw this out there as a stat that Kenny gave. We've been tracking. He gave me this stat before we got on today. We've been tracking Deshaun Watson's time to throw all year because everybody likes to talk about the line has let Deshaun Watson down all season long and this, that, and the other, but he had the 7th best time to throw. And I know I'm bringing him up again, but it's just to illustrate the fact that he had the 7th best time to throw. Well, put Jameis Winston in there, and he now has the 7th worst time to throw. And so Jameis Winston is getting no time, and yet in every game that he's played so far, he has thrown for more yards than Deshaun Watson averaged. So just saying.
And Jameis had one good game and one bad game, right?
In the bad game, he still threw for more yards than Deshaun averaged.
Still threw for more yards, right? So, and with less time to throw. Yeah, I mean, that was the excuse we heard all year long was, the line's not, Deshaun's running for his life, blah, blah, blah. Deshaun had time to throw, plenty of it. Top 10 time to throw. Jameis has top or bottom 10 time to throw, and he's still throwing for more yards. And he at least had one really fantastic game already in 2 starts. So,
yeah. And guys, I'm actually
conclusions from there, I guess.
Right, and I'm going to move the Nick Chubb topic. We'll talk more about Nick Chubb on our Thursday show and just kind of what we think going forward with him, whether or not he's going to be on the roster or not going into next season. But real quick here, win-losses at the end of the season. Where do you see the Browns? We're going to start with Bone.
Oh, man. I say we win 3 more games.
So we end up 5 and 12 is what you're going.
Mm-hmm. I think we pick one off the Steelers, and I'm not sure about the rest of the season. But
you think we're going to win New Orleans this week?
Yes, actually, I do, because we're going to be there. It's going to be a blast.
And Jameis Winston is playing his old team.
Yeah, he's playing his old team, so maybe there'll be a little little extra push down there. So
nice.
It's Superdome. It'll be fun. We're gonna win this week.
Yeah, private charter flight. Just a few seats left. Make sure you get them. Kenny, what do you think the win-loss is going to be at the end of the season?
I've got the Browns winning 2 more games the rest of the way. I got the Saints this week and Denver at the beginning of December here. I think that's it. And really they're at Mile High, so they'll probably lose that one too. But those are the 2 that if I had to pick just based on personnel and how the teams are playing, I think Denver is not as good as how they played this year. But obviously Bo Nix, young quarterback. But I just look at the rest of this schedule and I'm like, I mean, the Steelers are grinding out every win possible because they know it's going to make the difference between the playoffs and not. Ravens, same thing. And I just don't see the Bengals laying down because they're still trying to claw their way back. You have too many division games left that matter to these teams that I don't see any way that you're going to win against.
Yeah, and you mentioned,
and then
outside I was just going to say, you mentioned the go ahead. You mentioned the Bengals, Kenny, and how we know that they're not very good, right? But Joe Burrow has played at probably an MVP level this season, but his defense has let him down severely. And so Joe Burrow legitimately is like the best passer in the NFL right now.
I mean, that game on Thursday night was, I know we'll talk about it tomorrow or on Thursday show, but that game Thursday night was incredible to watch. I mean, that was a back and forth game.
Looks like they're playing a different game than Cleveland.
Yes. You stole my final thought of the day. That was my final thought, was that these teams just look like they're playing a different game.
You can still say it when we get there. Don't worry about it. So my win-loss for the rest of the season, though, I've got the Browns winning. I'm between 2 numbers here. I'm going to go with the higher now. I may end up changing my mind down the road, but I have them winning 4 more games and still finishing pretty bad at 6-11. So, yeah, I've got them with 4 more. I think they're going to clip the Steelers once. I think they're going to get New Orleans. And then you just need 2 more after that. So we'll see.
Just need 2 more after that against the Dolphins and the Chiefs or the Ravens. Yeah, good luck.
I'm going to go with 4. I may drop that down to 3, but I'm going to go with 4. I was between 3 and 4, just so you guys know. I went with the higher number, so I'm trying to be optimistic still. We're coming out of a bye. So I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible. After this week's game, if they lose to the Saints, I'm dropping it down to 1 more game the rest of the year, just so you know.
Honestly, with Jameis at quarterback, the sky is the limit. This team could go 7-1 down the stretch, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'd go, this was supposed to be a good football team, and they had a bad quarterback, and now you have one that's playing well. But it comes down to how Jameis plays. I mean, Jameis has to be perfect. If Jameis played like he played in his first start, they could win 7 games. That wouldn't surprise me. But if Jameis has 1 game where he plays not as well like he did last week, you're going to lose every one of those games. So. And I think that's just what Jameis is at this point in his career. Look, I love Jameis. I'm excited to watch him play football the rest of the year, but I just think he's hot and cold. He's gonna have really good moments and good games where we're like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And then there's gonna be games where he is who we thought he was, which was a backup quarterback in his early 30s, at the beginning of the season. Like that's why he's not a starter anywhere right now. Look, I like Jameis. I'm excited to watch him play. I just think that's the kind of the reality of where you're at with him.
Yeah. And so my final question was just going to be, how high of a pick do we end up with? But that kind of correlates with how many games you think they're going to win. So I think we both have them, or we all 3 have them somewhere in between like the 6 to like 13 range as far as picks. So,
the interesting thing about the draft order is there's a lot of bad teams in the NFL right now. Like a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the Dolphins are 2-6, the Patriots are 3-7, the Jets are 3-7, Raiders are 2-7, the Browns are 2-7, the Jags are 2-8, Titans are 2-7. I mean, that's just AFC teams.
It's a tight race for those top picks.
I mean, the Cowboys are 3-6, Giants are 2-8. Bears are 4-5 somehow miraculously. The Panthers are 3-7. Saints are 3-7. There's a bunch of teams that are going to be competing for that top pick in the draft next year.
Yeah. And so with that, though, guys, we'll get into a lot more of these topics as the season unfolds, because guess what? I have a feeling a lot of these games aren't going to be that exciting, and we're going to need more things to talk about. So that's what we'll be doing. But final thoughts for the day. We'll go ahead and start with Kenny, since I stole his thunder, and it's not going to be that. Since he is thunder, but I stole his thunder. I stole Kenny Thunder's thunder. Kenny, what is your final thought for this week?
You stole my thunder. I'll give you some new thunder. My final thought is I can't wait to go to New Orleans this week. It's going to be a hell of a time. Browns fans show up, show out, rain or shine, win or lose. I'm excited for the private charter flight. We're going to be on this thing with a bunch of Browns fans, just laying back and just having a few drinks in the sky, and I can't wait to get on the ground there, have our little boat cruise with Kevin Mack and company, and just take in all that New Orleans has to offer. It's going to be a hell of a time, and I can't wait to just hang out with the boys all weekend long.
Bone, final thoughts?
Yeah, I can't wait for that either. But I'm gonna leave it at this. Russell still tussles. I don't think he's lost the game.
Oh my god!
Oh
my god! Why don't you just become a Steelers fan already?
Hey, I'm no Steelers fan, but I am Russell Wilson fan. So I wanted to shove it in your face, Ronnie Jams. Russell still tussles.
This is bullshit. My final thoughts are this. I can't wait to go to New Orleans. Browns fans show up, show out. Rain or shine, we're going to be in New Orleans with our buddies.
Taking everything I say.
I tried to remember it. I tried to remember it and repeat it word for word, but it wasn't working too well. Yes, I did steal yours because that was going to be mine anyways, and you stole my thunder after I stole your thunder. So very excited for New Orleans. We're going to have a hell of a time with True Fan Travel. Make sure, like I said, twice already in the show, the charter flight still has a few seats left. It's going to be an awesome time. All Browns fans on that, hanging out with the alumni that are coming. That's Christian, Kirksey, and Kevin Mack. Bridget Linton will be on that flight as well. And the all your trip coordinators from True Fan Travel, and us, the most important people on the trip with True Fan Travel to New Orleans. We're going to help the Dog Pound take over the Superdome, and it's going to be a badass time, and the Browns are going to get a win. They're going to be eating them dubs. And so, yeah, everybody's eating dubs. I don't know what Bone's doing, but let me remind everyone to call the Burning River Sportscast Hot Take Hotline. Don't forget to call and leave your hot takes on the Hot Take Hotline. Remember, these are hot takes. We want hot takes. 330-227-8080. 330-227-8080.
8080.
Call now. We'll put you on the air. And be sure to check out our gear, www.thetappinmedia.com/shop. That'll do it for us. Kenny, what can we expect this week?
What can we expect next week? I mean, this week you can expect it. We'll be back on Thursday with the Week 11 preview for the game against New Orleans, which we will be at with True Fan Travel. And we're working out logistics on how we can put together a live show remote next week after the game, maybe even a pregame. We're still trying to figure out details around that, but our plan will be to share some time with you sometime Sunday and next week, likely to be live maybe after the game, like 8 or 9 o'clock, to discuss the Week 11 game against the Saints.
We'll see what happens. It depends on how much we drink.
Yeah, if we're inebriated or not, how much, whether we're slurring words or if we're able to stand up straight, we'll see.
If we're just tipsy, but we're good to go, we're going to be on,
Yeah, as long as we're good to go.
We'll be broadcasting to nobody. I'll think I set everything up right, and we'll be broadcasting to no one.
We'll probably at least go live once or twice just to kind of share some of the stuff we're doing in New Orleans, because I think it's going to be no bad time. So be plenty of content the whole time we're down in Ronnie's mom. I'm sorry, the Big Easy.
Damn. I don't even know how to recover from that. I hope she's not watching.
Love you, Cindy.
Good Lord. I guess check us out on social media. Tapin Media is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Tapin Media. And Burning River Sportscast, that's this podcast, is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Burning River Sportscast, and on X at Burning River Pod. And you can find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm talking Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Castro, Good Pods, where we are a #1 ranked football podcast, and so many more. And what the hell, man? I'm still my mom.
I had to do it.
I was just hanging out with her earlier today, and she had no idea this was coming. She had no idea this was coming. She's gonna be devastated.
She knew I was coming.
Oh God. Well, there you have it. This is on air for this is available online for the rest of my life and my mother's.
Oh gosh. Love you, Cindy.
Bone. What do you think about this?
I gotta go to sleep. The wife's calling me, so bon appetit. Good night.
Don't just be a part of the problem, be the whole damn problem.
And only you can prevent river fires. Burning River Sportscast.
Burning River
Sportscast. Burning Rivers. Good night, Cleveland.
Good night, Cleveland.
Good night, Akron.
Sorry, Mom.